Hi, Joe. Great to see you again.
Good to see you too. Thanks for having me.
Just for the viewers in the Netherlands, maybe it's nice if you do a short introduction about who you are, because we know Greyston and people, maybe they know you by now, but you have started just, I think, this year as vice president.
Yeah, so actually, I joined Greyston in February of 2018
Yeah.
as the VP of Programs and Partnerships. But prior to that, I had spent 15 years or so in the private sector. So I was an insurance underwriter. I was on Wall Street as an insurance analyst. I was in PepsiCo for almost 10 years in sales strategy, risk management, capital markets, and then did 10 years in government in both elected and appointed office. My last job prior to coming to Greyston was the Deputy Commissioner for Social Services for Westchester County. So I joined Greyston soon after that as the VP of Programs and Partnerships, so working with the workforce development and our community wellness programming. We have our 12 community gardens, and then now we have the Center for Open Hiring, and was just recently appointed President and CEO this past April at the height of the pandemic.
So what time to start?
Yeah, we like trial by fire around here. So, but I've been here for almost 3 years in total, but just over 6 months as President and CEO.
So, if what is your vision? We just have a talk today about how you managed to get Greyston, how to manage open hiring within Greyston, and at the same time you have a bakery to run, and you have to make some money. I mean, it's not, you are a social enterprise, and at the same time you also have to stay alive.
Yes.
And I think that's very interesting part of how do you manage these both goals? How is it possible to keep that going for 38 years already?
Yes, yeah. Well, you mentioned that. So it's 38 years we've been doing this, and for me, and I issued a note to the team around the time I first became president and CEO. You really have to go back to our founder, right, Bernie Glassman, and his whole belief was, business could be a force for good. His whole belief system was, we're all here for a purpose, and we all have talents and things that we can contribute, and it's up to each of us to kind of figure that out and help each other and invest in those talents to be successful. So that's why Greyston was founded. And, I was a bit concerned actually when the pandemic hit, and, what does that do to people's view of open hiring and and how companies would view open hiring. But then as I started thinking about it, this is why we were founded. The whole point is to bring people into a situation that has excluded them, that has kept them out and given them hope and given them something to trust in. And that's what open hiring is all about. So for me, it's, we've got to double down on what we're doing. We've got to invest in our workforce development team and our community wellness programming, 12 community gardens that we have, dealing with food insecurity, which folks are dealing with now, training and getting folks employed in essential services, which is what folks need now, working at hospitals, security guards and things like that. But also, as you said, you got to make money because you can't give the job opportunities if the business is not sustainable. But the beauty of our organization is we are a part of a global supply chain for an organization like Ben & Jerry's Unilever and people all over the world. And I was listening to Alan Jupp the other day, not the other day, but it was probably a month or so ago. He was talking about how people are now taking care of their groceries through these home delivery systems, and they're putting ice cream in their online grocery carts, and they're doing it in record numbers, it seems. People are snacking all over the globe. So we just have to continue to meet the needs of our customer, which is Ben & Jerry's Unilever, Whole Foods, but we also have to continue to make sure that we look after the community that we're in, which is Southwest Yonkers, that was struggling before the pandemic, right?
Yeah, it was
even during the longest boom of this country, the people that we serve, whether we're hiring them at the bakery or going through our nonprofit, they were struggling then, and now it's just even more pronounced, which is what COVID did. It brought to light a lot of the inadequacies and inequities that we see in our own system. And again, Greyston was founded to kind of bring some of those things to light and to really show folks that, this is why we need systemic change. It starts with open hiring in terms of bringing people into an organization, but it's really about how are we looking at ourselves and businesses and being problem solvers in general.
And so you mentioned Ben and Jerry and Unilever, and they have high standards. This is a high-end product that you are delivering, and at the same time you hire people through open hiring. How do you make that match work? How do you create? How do you get people to the standards that you need them to be for?
Yeah, so you just mentioned it. So Ben & Jerry's, Unilever, Whole Foods, world-class customers, companies that adhere to the highest of standards, and you have to communicate that.
Yeah.
And I say this all the time. Open hiring does not mean standards go out the door. Instead, it just means the exclusionary practices that we've had, whether it's background checks, interviews, whatever biases that are already built into the system. That's what gets eliminated. But at the end of the day, again, goes back to being a sustainable business. We have to adhere to standards that Unilever has and Ben & Jerry's have. There are good manufacturing practices that we have to adhere to, SQF. I mean, all of these different standards that must be adhered to if we are to remain in business. And all employees, not just the open hires, but all employees need to understand that. But at the end of the day, that's just common sense, right? You take care of your customers, you take care of your vendors, you take care of your employees. Your company should do well, but you have to reinforce it. So we do have all the standards that any other manufacturer would have in terms of attendance, in terms of quality. We just have a radically different way of bringing people into the organization.
The other fundamental value about open hiring, I think it's trust. I mean, this is something that we have in common. That's all about trust and trusting people. How do you keep that alive in all those years, that you keep the fundamental values of open hiring alive, and that people still understand what your goal is? Because in the Netherlands, people just started, and Mameloos started like a year and a half ago.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's great, and we have like 17 employees now. But now we're thinking about, okay, now how do we keep it alive, and how do we keep the good thing going? Is there anything you can help us with that?
Well, we have to live it out, right? So it goes back to our founder, Bernie Glassman. I mean, if you actually go on the walls, if you go to the bakery and you see on the walls, the values are all over the wall. So non-judgment, path making, that whole idea of loving action, and letting folks know that we want you to be successful, but it's a reciprocal relationship. I can't help you if I don't know what you're going through. And as you know, we have through a relationship we have with Westchester Jewish Community Services, we have what we call an employment path maker who sits at the bakery. It's a social worker who deals with other issues, kind of the non-traditional HR issues that folks deal with, whether it's housing, domestic violence, transportation. It's her job to help folks deal with those issues. And it's not because we just warm and fuzzy people that, just like to do nice things for folks, but it's good business. It helps folks be fully present. It helps folks kind of deal with the other distractions and kind of eliminate those distractions that may be going on in their lives. Helps them come to work, and when they're at work, they can be fully present and do a good job adhering to all the quality things that we just talked about. But it's eliminating that one issue that may keep folks from being productive, being successful, and it's part of our DNA. So we communicate that really on the first couple of days of orientation, that here are the standards, here's what it means to be a baker in Greyston, but here are also the resources that we want to give you in order to continue to be successful. So in addition to all the things that I mentioned, there's other training, just technical training that goes into this, but it's also just soft skills training. Some folks might have issues dealing with conflict. Some folks may have issues working in a team. Those are all things that are correctable, if you want to be successful. And so we give those resources and we make them available. We talk about them. We talk about the values. They're on the wall, but it's really about how we live it out. So that's incumbent on all of us. So it starts with me, obviously, but it goes down to the VPs, whether it's Rich Jamesley, who runs the bakery, or his supervisors who are dealing with the apprentices, or even the folks here. I mean, we say, you know, open hiring is a practice, but it's also a philosophy. So it's how we treat each other.
And it's also interesting. You started mentioning that it's also the employer himself or herself. She has also a responsibility to be open about what problems there are. I mean, you're not questioning people, but you expect them to come forward if there
Exactly.
are issues, and they also have a responsibility in that part. It's not only the manager or the employer, but also the employee who has a role to play.
And of course, the non-judgment doesn't stop with the hiring. So it's, you know, once you're here, if you're going through those things, okay, let's figure out how we deal with it. We're not going to judge you if you're sleeping in your car or you're dealing with recovery or whatever it might be. We're not going to judge you, but I need to know that that's an issue so that we can figure out what's the solution for it. So, you know, the non-judgment goes throughout your time here. And even if, you know, we have to part ways, whether it's voluntary or involuntary, the non-judgment comes into play. It's like, we don't judge you on the way in, we're not going to judge you on the way out. But at the end of the day, we are running an organization that, you know, needs to get the brownies out the door, and we need to make sure we deliver for our customers, and we need to make sure that, you know, the product that's being produced is a quality one.
It's the philosophy, and it's also a method of hiring. And now we're spreading the word.
Yes, yes.
As partners, that's our goal. Spread it around the world. You even had a talk to France last week, I guess, or I had a talk, and you're gonna take over, which is
It's exciting. It's
yeah,
exciting.
very exciting, very exciting. Also, Belgium is aboard. But what is happening in the United States? Because you have a partner with Body Shop going on. How did that happen? How is what's going on there?
That is, I mean, it was an amazing start because just the size and the, you know, just the notoriety of the Body Shop adopting open hiring, that in and of itself was a success. But the what was even more of a success was the number of opportunities that they were giving out. I mean, 500 or more opportunities that were given out in their, I shouldn't say given out, but made available to, you know, their distribution center in North Carolina. And as you know, they decreased their turnover by 60%. Productivity went up 13%. But it didn't stop there. They decided to do it in their retail operations as we speak. So this quarter, you know, they're rolling it out to all of their retail operations in the U.S. and Canada, which is just incredible. But others are adopting open hiring. So we've got a grocery store chain in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area, Giant Eagle, giving out, you know, making available 150 opportunities. Another company called Arbonne that recently just came on. It's like Avon type of a company, online consumer products. They're going to be introducing open hiring within their organization. As you know, we've been working with CleanCraft, Ty Hookway, who's on our board up in Rochester, New York. He has a custodial services company. He's doing open hiring, and actually we're trying to create a regional hub there, working with him and other businesses in partnership with another nonprofit called ABC to provide the supportive services. They're doing open hiring. Rhino Foods, Ben and Jerry's partner of ours, and they've been very innovative as well within their organization, but they're doing open hiring in Vermont. So it's just incredible to see all of these different, and there are a couple of other companies that I want to mention, but I just can't because they're not ready yet. But when I do, it's really going to be exciting if they can roll out open hiring as well. So it's catching on, and I think folks are seeing it. And I was saying this to Yost the other day. Open hiring is just kind of the appetizer, if you will, of like really producing this systemic change that we're talking about, because it opens the door to just how, and again, it goes back to what COVID's revealed, how we as employers look at our talent, how we look at our employees. It's more holistic now. It has to be, because folks they're thinking about safety, they're thinking about training, they're thinking about their future and purpose. They, you know, a lot of folks are, you know, want to see, like, am I just kind of producing widgets, or am I actually going above and beyond and really doing something more meaningful with whatever it is you're producing? It could be bicycle seats, it could be brownies.
That doesn't matter.
Cookie dough, but like, is there another purpose to our organization other than that? And those are all good things, right?
Yeah.
But are we contributing something else by doing what we do? That's what folks are looking for, and open hiring kind of starts that conversation. So that's the beauty of what we're doing. So we're excited. I mean, over 700. If you look at all the people, all the companies that I've talked about, over 700 opportunities have been provided to people, and they're seeing the business case for it because they're reducing turnover, or they're reducing the cost to hire, or even the time it takes to hire. In the case of Giant Eagle, they're seeing results, but there's also the point where it's just good social practice. Like, you're bringing in folks that otherwise were deemed unemployable, and in our case, they're now deemed essential, which is just incredible. So we're excited. And even as I look, at the Start Foundation and the partnership that we had, I think the last time I spoke to you, you had 12, and now you're at 17. So it's amazing.
Yeah,
And
it's
when I was
increasing.
talk to Jos about that, it's like, now we're at 17. You mentioned Belgium. Now there might be another opportunity with France. So, and we've been talking to the Business Roundtable here in the United States. So it's catching on. And I think, the vision is to kind of collect the data so that we can really demonstrate both the business case as well as, the social impact case, that why this is an amazing model. And I always bill it as a business model, a talent management strategy. This is why it works. This is why you need to do this in whatever form it takes within your organization, because it just makes sense. It's just win-win all around.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It is. Um, and what would you advise the Dutch companies that have just started? They're very engaged, and they're really committed. They started before COVID, actually, and they all went on even during COVID, and now they're opening the doors again. Most of them, some of them are having a really hard time, and they just have to struggle, and they can't hire anyone at this moment. But this is, still, they do engage into open hiring. But it's also very challenging to. I mean, how do you yeah, get it bigger also inside your own organization, because they started small and now we're trying to get more people aboard. What is a strategy you would advise new companies that just started?
Yeah, and I would say, and I just read a good book by Arthur Blank, who is one of the co-founders of Home Depot. It's called Good Company, and one of his values is just listening. Listening to our employees, listening to each other, getting in alignment. One other thing, and we've seen this as we try to roll it out in different companies. It's so important that the CEO, that person's team, the folks below really understand the why behind all of this,
Yeah,
why you're doing it, why this is a good thing for us as an organization, and why it makes sense for us as an organization. People need to understand that up and down the chain. So from the very top to the folks that below, everybody needs to understand that, and you got to be intentional about it. And this can't just be something that we're doing because it's just great marketing, or it's great corporate social responsibility slogans. You really have to believe in it. And you really have to be intentional about it, and invest the time in seeing that it works, and also be willing to maybe go slow. It really depends on the context, right? The company. Some
yeah.
people, like the Body Shop, they just jumped in at the deep end, and they,
That was a big jump.
if you look at
Over that.
that company, if you look at their DNA, their mission,
Yeah,
it
that's
just
true.
fits. It fits who they are. And then some folks just have to go slow, and
True.
then take be methodical about doing it. And we're seeing that with organizations like the Business Roundtable. I mean, I came from Pepsi. And I say it all the time. Like, if you told me about open hiring when I was at Pepsi, I'd probably roll my eyes and say, like, really? I don't have time, because all the hoops that you have to jump through, all the bureaucracy. You got to talk to the general counsel, then you got to talk to HR, and then you got to talk to this group, and you got to get all this buy-in. In the meantime, you still got a ton of other things to do. Maybe not right now, but when you kind of, again, get the data from what we're going to be getting from our pilots and folks like you in the Netherlands, and you start to see why this makes sense, and you start to see the impact that's happening, folks will come along. So, but again, depending on your organization, you might have to go a little bit slower, or you can go in at the deep end. But be realistic about how you want to roll it out within your organization, and listen every step of the way, and really course. You might have to do some course correct, or you might have to make some changes within your own organization. That's fine too. But as long as you're intentional about it, the model will work. Well, it's simple, but it is. I mean, if you're a human resources professional, this is like something that's just you have never heard of. Like, what do you can't tell a traditional human resources person that they're not going to interview or they're not going to do background checks. So it is quite the disrupting force, and it's quite the innovation. So it's kind of getting people to get their heads around, like, why wouldn't we interview? That's really the mind shift that needs to take place.
Yeah, it seems to be really simple, and people who understand after they started, they say it's really simple, but before they get started and have to go through the steps, it's quite difficult because it's totally different from what people are used to work with. So that's also the fun part of it.
Exactly.
Very exciting. And
but the funny thing is, though, and we saw this, I think it was maybe a year or so ago, where we had a asset manager, so totally outside of our industry, come in to see the bakery operations and see how it works. And he admitted, when he came in, he was just like, I don't know how you could do something like this. And then after seeing it, he's like, I don't see why you wouldn't do something like this, because it just makes sense. But that's, everybody has that point where they have the mind shift, and it might be different for different people. Some people just need to see it. Some people just need to see the data. And and it's our job, both you and I, in our partnership, is to kind of have that information, both the qualitative as well as the quantitative, available to them, so that we could demonstrate to them. And the stories are always great. I mean, just when you hear like the individual stories of folks that have been transformed,
stories are incredible.
To me, that's better than the data of turnover and productivity. Those are great metrics, but when you actually hear people tell their story, it's incredible.
Well, this is a great talk. It's we are almost at the end. Is there anything you would like to share with us that you didn't mention right now?
I mean, I would just say, continue to liaise with folks like Greyston and the START Foundation to really learn more about open hiring and why we've all just taken on this, enormous task of seeing the model replicated in so many different contexts, because this is going to be a game changer in terms of creating an inclusive economy. And, we're just doing our small part in terms of employment, but there clearly, when you talk about any kind of anti-poverty strategy, it's multifaceted. So it's education, it's criminal justice, it's employment, it's public policy, economic policy. There's so many different pieces, but we're playing our part in terms of the solution. And the more you can learn from Greyston and the START Foundation, I'd say the better.
Thank you so much for having this conversation. It's great to be a partner of Greyston. We're very proud that we can be part of this great movement, because I think it's a movement.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can bring it to the next level next year, because I think after all this investment, all this time we invested, and now it seems that it's really taking off now. People are really helping us also to make it to the next level. So it's great to be part of it.
Yeah, and we're so proud to be a partner with you guys. And like you said, we just scratched the surface. So we're going to be taking it to the next level in the new year. So we're looking forward to continuing the partnership with the START Foundation and see that 17 grow to an even larger number.
Oh, absolutely. We go for it. Well, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
And we'll talk soon.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.